about that too. So hold your horses. Let's get Alan Miller on from the Together Declaration. Alan Miller, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
I think this is the first time the three of us have been in the same place.
I can't hear him.
I was just thinking, I saw that photo of you guys last night, and I'm a bit gutted I didn't get an invite. I'm not sure I would have made it in looking as bright and sharp as you two.
Well, listen, we've been doing this, I'm afraid, for longer than I care to remember. I met Donald in about 2003 or something like that. And, we're much better behaved now than we used to be, but there we are.
No, can't be.
Let's talk, first of all, before we mention your event at the garage in Glasgow, about digital ID, because it seems to be popping up again. It seems as though this government are trying to sort of shuffle it in, herald it in through the back door. What's your little take on it all?
Yeah, well, Darren Jones has been very clear, isn't he? I mean, as clear as you can be when you contradict yourself daily, which is originally digital ID was allegedly to stop illegal migration, illegal working. Then that was jettisoned when everyone ridiculed it and talked about Italy and France and Germany all having biometric ID and not stopping illegal migrants. And then now they're telling us it's all about dealing with red tape and making everything easier. This is from a government that loves bureaucracy, imposing more laws and rules on us all the time, not least in terms of the net zero arena with Mad Ed Miliband and what we've been talking about, what you guys have just been talking about in Glasgow, but locally and nationally in terms of all sorts of measures that limit and restrict trade and business and our activity. And so the irony of Darren Jones now coming out and saying, well, you know what, we're going to have it anyway. I know we said we're not going to have it mandatory for work, but this is just going to make life easier. And we're going to have a citizens group of people, 100, the good 100, that are going to be like the consultants on this. And there is a wider consultation. And I just say, Mike, that many of your viewers and listeners and many of the great British public keep doing consultations. We keep having making our voice heard. It is important. We do tell MPs and councillors, people are fed up with saying the same thing, giving the same instruction and being gaslit and lied to. And this basically is what's happening. What they're saying is we don't care what you think and say, but we want to impose something that's going to mean there's going to be surveillance, there's going to be potential restrictions like we've seen with debanking. We're going to have more facial recognition. We're going to make sure that children all have a unique digital identifier, that all directors have to sign in via one login, none of which was in any manifesto. And we've seen all the issues with Labour Together with McSweeney. It's all over the front pages at the moment, what's happened with Starmer, also with Lammy. And yet here we are, people at Labour Together and along with the Blair Institute, having come up with this terrible idea that every time there's an issue we have to address, whether it's the borders, whether it's potholes, whether it's infrastructure, or dealing with crime, hey presto, we're going to have digital ID. And what it really means is it's going to start treating everybody as though we're all walking barcodes, that we're all potential criminals to be surveyed and listened to. Remember, Liz Kendall oversaw the ability for people to go into unelected people, no transparency, into our bank accounts at the Department of Work and Pensions. She's also, by the way, even though it was good that the vote in Parliament said that for now, no ban on under 16s on social media, they've created caveats to say that she can still impose those measures anyway. So across the board, we've got a situation where this government, which is not fit for purpose, which is actually very damaging and harmful, that keeps imposing more and more measures to restrict us, is now just saying, we don't care. We're going to formally go through this process, but frankly, we all know it's got to happen. And so what we're saying at the Together Declaration and the Together Association is that we must have the ability not to have to verify to participate. It's outrageous. You have to pay for an account. And if you're a tiny business or you've just started up, why should you be forced to have an accountant just so that you don't have to do one login? But that's the situation. So you can still avoid one login for the time being, but you have to have an ACSP. That's not participating as normal. And as we go down the line, they're going to try and force this ever more. Now, one other thing about this, because I know that people say, well, we use our phones for other things. In the commercial sphere, if people choose to use their phone to do things, that's entirely up to them. but we've got to have the ability to do things in the analog world. And the commercial sphere, even though you've got big tech and there's been some very concerning things with them, is different to the state having an all-encompassing purview to survey and track and oversee what you're doing. But it should also be noted, Mike, that the head of the banking of international settlement said, well, we love the digital moment. We love the idea of central bank digital currency using digital ID because it means we can track every single transaction. And really, in the end, this is what this is about. It's about the concerns around surveillance and control, but also the hundreds of millions of data breaches just this year that have been happening, that we've seen everything from Jaguar Land Rover to Heathrow to all sorts of measures and things like the
They even
Horizon.
hacked Donald McLeod's account. We haven't talked about that, but we will.
Yeah, we'll get that, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? And the fact is that, as you say, Alan, all of this is happening without anybody ever voting for it. You know, nobody ever said, this is what we're going to do. And everyone went, oh, great, okay, then in that case, I'll just tick that box and go, thank you very much indeed. They're kind of operating without any mandate whatsoever, aren't they?
They've got no mandate for it. In fact, the British public have been fairly consistent with what people want to see. And, often we've been ignored, which is why so much of this populism that's happening, and I think, by the way, the populism is a good thing.
Yeah.
But that's why this is happening, because we've been ignored, we're being gaslit, and we're being lied to consistently. And you see, it's being framed in certain ways. But, it was never in a manifesto. It was never discussed openly. And what we've seen is, I think we're up to 16 U-turns now with a government that's not fit for purpose. And I think, though, that it's what's really important, and I'll share it when we do a post to this as well, but the Digital Bill of Rights, the whole point about having the ability not to have to verify to participate, it wasn't just that when Churchill said, we don't do that, having ID cards, it's not the British way. The British public, time and again, have not wanted this. And, if politicians and leaders are going to get on with dealing with things, they absolutely should do that for infrastructure, for border control, for improvement in efficiency in the health, big discussion about what happens with health provision. But the idea that what's going to be a silver bullet is digital ID is just farcical. And I must say as well, on this point of democracy and sort of linking it to your show with Donald, I mean, what's happened in Glasgow is reflective of what's been happening in Britain, where green billionaires have been underwriting projects locally with people like UK 100 who pretend to be grassroots organisations, heavily funded cycle organisations with very few public involved, unlike Together, where we've got our mandate is from the public and individuals. They have people like Christopher Hone and Mike Bloomberg backing them, and they circumvent going through Parliament, and they go to local authorities and pump these projects to do things like low traffic neighbourhoods. And even though the Department of Transport has pushed it as well, we managed across Britain with everyone campaigning to get them to stop funding Liverpool streets, but Labour's carried on with it. But in places like Glasgow, they bombard local councillors and officers with the lobbying to try and implement these things. And there's been no proper consultation. And actually, when there is any consultation, they ignore people, as we've seen time and again. And it's suffocating and killing our cities and culture, destination hubs, what makes Scotland and Britain so great. I mean, you think about Glasgow, the reputation of it being such a fantastic city, music, culture, the arts, all being part of it. Obviously, people know Edinburgh Festival, but, that's all great. It happens, let's say, for a month with all the festivals. But, throughout the year, this is the thing that keeps people employed, keeps a place dynamic and fresh and exciting. And they're suffocating all these things on purely spurious terms. And this is why, with our Take Back Democracy tour and what we're going to go do with Donald in Glasgow, it's a fantastic venue at the Garage. But across Scotland and Wales, we've got a series of events. We had one yesterday in Swansea at Cinema & Co. And across England and in Ireland, we're getting the public to come to events, to do calls to action with people who are going to stand as councillors and say these key issues around net zero, around saying no to net zero, digital ID, about being open, having investment and productivity, not limits and restrictions, free speech. these things are essential, and that the public have to have our voices heard, because these technocrats have been limiting and suffocating and shutting things down, and we really need to stop that now.
I like to just cut in there. You were talking about, the lack of democracy, it's shocking. But you've got to think, where I come from in Scotland, we have another layer there, and it's called the Scottish government. So it's wedged in between the local authorities, Scottish government, and UK government. All of them are guilty. All of them are guilty of it. They are squeezing it. It's squeezing the people, as you say, gaslighting us. Introducing these LTNs slowly, but it's mission creep, isn't it? I mean, they just bring them in. Suddenly they're there. You can't go down a road. Oh, why not? Oh,
yeah, right.
The locals are reclaiming it. Nothing, not one of these things was ever put to the electorate an election. Sustrans, the millions that have been given to them to tear up our streets and to turn bike lanes in. I like cycling, but do we need Deliveroo expressways all the way through every town and city? No, we don't. And it's just, as I say, mission creep. So, I'm looking forward to the event in Scotland, but we have another layer, so we're worse.
Yeah.
We're getting it worse.
Devolution, the problem has been at the level of appearance. I really understand why people in Scotland, people in Wales and elsewhere will look at things and think those guys in Parliament. It's a bit like the discussion that they had about the Beltway in DC. And I really understand that sense of disgust and being let down and ignored by Westminster. But you see, the people in England have the same feeling. And the issue has been that it's been circumvented into this discussion about devolution, and then having more bureaucrats and people up there using that argument quite often to then pursue their own goals. And we've seen through lockdowns and on other issues, right, what that's meant in Scotland and in Wales. I mean, some really disastrous situations. And the idea of proper full accountability, transparency and democracy has not come through with that devolution. And there's a constant attempt by this Labour administration and bureaucrats to keep pushing that even further. That's really the impetus around more mayors everywhere, is in a sense to not be under the scrutiny and the ability to the cut and thrust of what happens in Parliament. And I know there's a lot of problems with Parliament, but you only have to listen to Keir Starmer, who said he prefers Davos to the hustle of Westminster and Parliament, because there is formally there a sense that you can all be held accountable on a national level.
Is there any party, Alan, that's listening to you? I mean, listening to your well-formed arguments. Really, is there anybody coming forward and saying?
I've got to say, they all have listened. I'll give you some examples, right? So the Lib Dems may not say they like us, but they've listened all around the southeast and southwest, because in Bath and Bristol and a range of areas, we've done a load of campaigns challenging these low emission zones, the low traffic neighbourhoods, bollards, and we've had people, actually the public, engaged in challenging leaflets, door to door, holding events. And putting them under pressure, right? So they know about us in the same way that this government knows all about us. Ironically, there's an event that's being promoted called Together Coalition on the 28th of March. I mean, you know what Warhol said about flattery being the best form, about imitation.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they're doing that because against the kind of populist impulse. And it's all sorts of organisations that really, they were there, for instance, many trade unions who I must say that during lockdowns were nowhere to be seen representing their members when they didn't want to have
100%. Shocking.
And then, of course, the Conservatives know all about us, and the Green Party definitely knows about us. And we were when the Gorton and Denton by-election went on, we were up there campaigning against net zero and talking to people, proper grassroots. I must say they had some good ground game there. But and then and reform, and I must say that reform is a very refreshing new moment. It's a kind of seismic shock to the British United Kingdom's political establishment. And I think that the public are ahead of everyone. There are obviously some other new parties as well. I mean, they're very small. I don't know what's happening with everything with them, but there's a lot of noise on what people call the right between like Restore and Advance and all of that. But Reform, have hundreds of councillors already and are looking like they're going to get many hundreds more. They're saying that they will get rid of net zero, certainly supporting agriculture and the farmers, against digital ID, scrapping IHT, on infrastructure, on the borders, on a range of different issues. They're saying the things that the majority of the British public definitely want. And we have been doing white papers and putting forward our policies to them and others. We've got some more news coming out on digital ID, and we've got some more stuff coming out on net zero. We did 2 very big pieces of work on net zero and on so-called clean air with Ben Pyle that held Sadiq Khan to account about basically lies. They tried to get the scientific evidence tampered with. Those people that kept saying the science, the science, the science. They tried to get the evidence tampered with because they didn't like the results, because this discussion about clean air and low emission zones and low traffic neighbourhoods is completely nonsense. So we did a couple of really big pieces of work, which honestly got completely fact checked by everyone. And the Telegraph took a long time till they published it, because I think everyone was so gobsmacked and nervous that this couldn't quite be exactly true. And so we're constantly doing things with different representatives from our cabinet on social care and on other areas, and around net zero. Low emission zones, low traffic neighbourhoods is particularly an issue. We've been told by Reform that they will dispense with them in local authorities, and also if you look at Kent and other areas where they already are, they've done things like unannounced. They've announced that the climate emergency is no longer an emergency. So
well, this is the thing that they do, though, right? Because and it's good that they're doing that, because, as you say quite rightly, Alan, they tell you to follow the science, and then they cheat the science, and they go, well, look, it was like the hockey stick graph scenario, wasn't it, from East Anglia University?
Twice with the clean air.
Where they just literally make, I mean, Sadiq Khan's done it as well, where he's trying to make out that the air is cleaner in London now, thanks to his, incredible revolutionary idea of making the traffic sit for longer at traffic lights, because, the traffic lights don't actually change to green very often. And it's not true. And then they try and make out that, well, we've got the scientific evidence to prove how much better the world is because of what we've done, and it's complete and utter cobblers. But anyway, listen, Alan, we've got to move on. Tell us a bit about what you're doing with Donald in Glasgow later on in the month, and then we'll talk a bit about. I'm going to see you tomorrow night at another event, which is also a Together inspired scenario. So tell us a bit about those two things.
Yeah, well, the second one I'm not talking about because it's all hush, Mike. But
oh, is it?
Oh, it's all secret squirrel. But you've blown that one.
Luckily, I didn't give too much away.
We'll have to cancel that. So yes, we're really excited about Glasgow. It's one of my favourite cities and places. I don't want to get into stereotypes, but there's so many important things that have happened there. And actually, not for live music, but also for dance music, which I was involved with for 30 years. Glasgow's been a really, really essential hub and anchor for all of that. And we saw some terrible things like clubs being closed down, and then through our conversations in my previous incarnation, at the end when I co-founded the NTI and other things, we explained to Police Scotland how important these hubs are, and working together and not treating businesses as though they're the enemy. And we were very successful at getting people around the table and stakeholders. And now we've got a situation where technocrats are shutting down high streets and hospitality and retail and small and medium-sized enterprises, which is the backbone of Britain, along with agriculture. It's the backbone. It's our communities. It's where things happen. It has a multiplier effect, regenerating, bringing in tourists. And if you look at Glasgow now and what's happened with, even if you want to get cabs from outside into Glasgow with, bike lanes where there's no one on, and then the problems with traffic and the zones, it's a disaster, right? And it's had a material impact on businesses. And so that's going to be something that
Donald converted here.
That's going to be
who's the other speakers you've got? You've got some fantastic.
Yeah, so
speakers
we've got Donald.
myself.
Obviously, we've got Michael Bergson, who's very, very well known in hospitality and much respected in Glasgow and internationally. We've got the We Glasgow project poet, and she's going to be doing some poems. She's great. You can see her big on TikTok and elsewhere, but she's going to be joining us. We've got Maggie Oliver, who's going to be doing a special one-on-one with me about what her work has meant with the whole rape crisis of young women and the rape gangs, and that's part of the Take Back Democracy tour. You see, about bravery and about the public and citizens engaged and doing things and showing inspiration, and so what it's going to be a night of that where we get the public to come and be engaged and talk and discuss. And it's going to be live streamed as well, so we'll share it. But we're excited about that. That's on the 25th of March in Glasgow, and we'd love everyone to come and join us for it.
All right, brilliant stuff. Great, and I won't see you, obviously, soon.
Just to say off that, we're doing things all around the country all the time, right? You know, a lot of people like to make noise on social media, and that's good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think but that's one part of it. It's a tactic within a strategy, within a plan. And at Together, we have a 360 approach, which is that we need to be across the board. That means having flyers given out on streets, knocking on doors, going to local shops, being around communities. It means organising meetings, calling councillors, visiting councillors, sending emails, calls to action, doing the same with politicians and with institutions, whether it's Companies House and what's going on with Department of Science and Technology around digital ID, or whether it's around the NHS, or whether it's Department of Transport. If you look at what we did with debanking and the FCA and the Bank of England, keeping cash, but tens of thousands writing into consultations, we've got to do the same. I'll share a link about the digital ID consultation. We've got to keep doing this on that. And so we're doing that alongside press and doing events, local, regional, national events. And then that's all leading up to, as we go through Wales and Scotland and England, to the 25th of April, Saturday, the 25th of April, just over a week before the May elections. We've got a Four Nations big rally and protest against digital ID and to take back democracy. So we'll be in London. We will be outside the Senedd in Cardiff. We'll be outside Holyrood in Edinburgh and in Belfast. And the whole idea is that the public keeps getting involved, making our voices heard, because those councillors and those MPs, when they feel the thrust and the arguments and the letters and the emails and the calls from constituents, and they know that they'll be voted in and out or on these issues, that's really important. But we say, don't just do that. Get involved, become a local leader, put up posters, get leaflets, invite people to get involved, get your workmates, colleagues, friends on your street, get local groups going over, as well as social media, but it's across the board. And that's what we're doing, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're very inspired by what we've seen, by people taking a lot of measures. We've just seen in Croydon, there's had to be a payout for people, and there's going to have to be a challenge. Sorry, there's a challenge that's been won by people around the LTNs. We've seen other payouts in different places. We know that in places like Birmingham, many people have challenged and appealed and won appeals on the clean air zones. Of course, this government's trying to stop appeals and jury trials. So that's another part of the thing we're campaigning against. The main thing is that we're saying that in the end, we have to depend on ourselves to hold everyone accountable. So whilst these new populist things are really good, we're also saying we need to be organised, we need to be vigilant, and we need to make sure we keep having our voices heard to represent ourselves together.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Alan, great to see you. Thanks very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. Alan Miller from the Together Declaration there. Great guy. Yeah. We've got much to talk about. Do you know... before we move on, have we done the news? We haven't done the news yet, have we? We've got to do the news. Are we going to get the talking news or the non-talking news? No. Lisa Tarbuck has announced she's stepping down from her BBC Radio 2 show.
No.
I mean, the world mourns, right? I know. There's having some kind of shake-up in the BBC. You know this idea we've had, which I think is going to be a great one, and we're going to launch it soon. We're going to get people to tear up their BBC licence, and we're going to issue them with a new licence for the Mike Graham show, and it's only $4.99 a month, so it's a third of the cost, right? Some people, when I said it last week, said, Mike Graham's going to make you buy a licence to watch his show. No, that's not what I'm doing, right? No, what we're saying is that it's just it's a sort of a Mickey take of the BBC to say that, they make you pay 174 quid to watch them. We're going to say, we're not making you do anything, but you can watch us and get access to all sorts of exclusive material for $4.99 a month, which would be amazing. Jane says, buy some batteries, Pooch, and Mike opens some gifts. Now, there's a good idea, Pooch, can we open some gifts this in the next sort of 20 minutes or so before the show ends? Tough poll this morning, Mike, says Matthew. Starmer should be ashamed of his entire premiership. Every one of them has been a disgrace. How is he still Prime Minister? Should we have a look at what the poll is saying? The question on the poll today is, what has been Keir Starmer's biggest scandal? Was it in fact the Mandelson problem, or was it the Southport riots? Was it Lord Alley, or was it Chagos Islands? And at the moment, Southport riots. That's a big number as well, 6,225 votes. That's
is there end boys on that?
No. That would not be possible to put on because obviously that's a sub judice. Sub judice that you can't be. It's a live case, right?
Oh, is it?
So thanks for coming on and
so
swearing.
you're not even allowed to mention that there was rent boys staying in his house.
No, they weren't staying in his house.
Was it not his house?
No.
Where was it?
No.
Whose house was it?
No, they firebombed his old house.
It's just been popped off YouTube.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
No, we haven't.
Anyway, thanks for coming in. It costing us money, and we're now going to be sued. Other than that, let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes with your news. Fresh documents released today reveal Prime Minister Keir Starmer was warned of serious reputational risk before appointing Lord Peter Mandelson as US Ambassador. Due to his past ties to Jeffrey Epstein, Mandelson, sacked last year, reportedly sought a £500,000 severance payout. In politics, at Prime Minister's questions, Starmer accused Conservative leader Kimi Badenoch of the mother of all U-turns over her shifting stance on UK involvement in the Iran conflict, after earlier calling for Britain to join US-Israeli strikes. The government is reviewing fuel duty rises planned for September amid global energy instability from the Middle East tensions, with Chancellor Rachel Reeves hinting at targeted support for households facing higher costs. Elsewhere, MPs have launched an inquiry into student loans amid concerns over graduate debt burdens. Regulators are pressing social media giants to strengthen age checks for under-13s to protect children online. And weather-wise, wind warnings are in place as colder conditions and even some mountain snow move south later this week. That's your UK headlines roundup. Stay tuned for more updates. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Well, at least he didn't call me Mikey Boy today, which is or Mick, which is obviously an improvement.
He'll be calling you tomorrow.
He's going to be calling me that tomorrow. Yeah. You're fired.